Well, it's 7 o'clock, so I think we'll get started. I just want to invite everyone to feel free to grab some juice and cookies there. We've also got some information on the back as well. My name is Caitlin, and I'm with Prairie Conservation Action Plan. We host monthly Native Prairie speaker series. So we usually do it online in a webinar format, or about 5 or 6 times a year we go to a small town somewhere in southwest Saskatchewan and do an in-person presentation there. So today, Sheena McInnes will be speaking about integrated weed management and biological control options. Before we begin, I'd like to start by stating we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of many Indigenous nations and communities, past and present, and for millennia, they have worked to protect these landscapes and the life these areas sustain. And I'd like to thank these original caretakers and acknowledge the ongoing work and presence of Indigenous peoples in Canada today. So today's presentation, Sheena will be talking, but before we get going, I just want to mention that we have a few other webinars coming up. There'll be one about woody encroachment in Saskatchewan, as well as a series of webinars in March about the ecological goods and services provided by the Native Prairie ecosystem, like carbon sequestration, or carbon storage, climate change, flood prevention, stuff like that. So that'll be taking place in March. And I'd like to note that financial support for today's presentation is provided by Environment and Climate Change Canada, and then also from SODCAP and the Frenchman Wood River Weed Management Area. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Sheena. Sheena works for 2 different organizations, and they're both a mouthful. So South of the Divide Conservation Action Program and Frenchman Wood River Weed Management Area. We love acronyms. So throughout the southwest part of the province, and Sheena went to the University of Montana and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Biology and went to college in Lakeland and Vermilion and graduated with a diploma in Conservation and Restoration Ecology. And Sheena's lived and worked in multiple places throughout her years, but being able to work on Native Prairie in this area of the province has always been her favorite. So, why don't you take it away, Sheena?
All right. Even though it's just you guys, I'm still very nervous. Uh-oh. What did I touch, Sheena?
There it is.
Hopefully everyone can kind of see that good still.
I can turn the light down too if you want.
Okay, so full disclosure, this is mostly watching a video today rather than me speaking. I'm like one of those teachers that puts on a movie and doesn't actually teach. Okay, so anyways, I'm Sheena, thanks for coming. I'm with the Frenchman Wood River Weed Management Area. So yeah, the video today, my goal with it is to provide more resources and information to the community. So taking action on weeds can seem a bit more easy and doable. I didn't want to do another presentation just IDing weeds. I wanted to kind of get people's voices out there and know that there's people out there who can help and who are experts. So over the next half an hour roughly, 2 guys with a lot more knowledge than me are going to do most of the talking. And if you have any questions at the end, hopefully I can answer them for you. But I do have contact sheets for them at the back if you want to know more. And I'm not a video editor, so this is the best I can edit. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so what I did was I held virtual interviews with 2 experts in grazing management. One, Lee Sexton, runs a targeted grazing consulting business, and Ralph Corcoran runs courses in holistic management. So I'm hoping that these video clips will give you more options and ideas for your farm or ranch, or farm or ranch. You'll just find it interesting for tackling weed issues. Okay, so first up is Lee Sexton, and he is from Hanley. He travels throughout the province offering targeted grazing services using small ruminants. He deals mostly with leafy spurge, but other invasives can be considered when setting up projects with him. He's taken several targeted grazing courses in the US and Canada, and he offers workshops and courses too. He wanted me to mention that his door is always open and he'll talk to anyone who wants to learn more. So what I asked him some questions, and they were, what exactly is targeted grazing? Why use goats for weed control? Why use goats or other small ruminants over other methods of weed control? What type of situations are best suited for using goats? What does a project life cycle look like? Some points about leafy spurge seed banks. How do goats actually eat leafy spurge? And his closing thoughts on using an integrated approach. So, with that, here's Lee Sexton on targeted grazing. So, basically the next 50 minutes is just Lee talking. So, here we go.
In targeted grazing, we are targeting unwanted species of vegetation that is invading lands that the owner does not want, or fields they don't want. So doing that, we can use different methods of that. We can do the herding, or we can do the fencing. And there's different fencing techniques that I use too, as well. So we can target certain species to a point using the various types of animals that we need for that species. And if it's a grass species or maybe a fruit that isn't as toxic, doesn't have as many tannins or other defense mechanisms in the plant, we can use the sheep versus using a better tool for something that's quite noxious or gives off a lot of defense system. I'll use the goats because they have a huge liver and they will absorb more of those toxins. I've been.
Can everyone hear it okay? It's not too echoey or anything?
Around cattle all my life. We were involved in sheep for just over the 25-year mark when I changed species, and in amongst that I still had cattle and sheep, but then I introduced goats, and in the last 12 years we've been into goats, and I guess it was a year and a half I got out of sheep altogether, so I'm down just to goats. And the reason I went to goats is they seem to be more favorable to the ranchers, the people that I'm dealing with in different projects. They're more acceptable because they feel they don't eat grass, okay? So when we're dealing with spurge, the goats will eat like up to 90% of their diet on spurge. Sheep I'll push to 65% at the most, so then we're not eating grass, right? And the ranchers seem to like that idea. I prefer to use small ruminants over other methods because of the natural, environmentally friendly approach that they give. We can add protein to the land when we do this, so it's another source of protein that if an owner wants to get involved, which I encourage them to do. I don't think that it's very profitable paying me a lot of money, but I will help them out to get going. But I do it for a small product, they come in through. But I use those animals because of the environmental concerns that we are starting to face, and they're more easily to transport than a large ruminant. But there's, like I said, we use the right tool for the right job. The other thing I like about them is that they fit in with most operations. So I can, it's diversity versus diversity adds diversity, okay? So anytime we can get diverse, we're creating healthier landscapes, which competes with plants that we don't want, the vegetation that's unwanted. So that's another reason why I prefer it. Chemicals, if it's a small area, sometimes I will recommend chemical. I'm not totally against the chemical. And I think we need to be integrated with the approach on looking after some of these things. So, you know, you can use animals, you can use, I've been involved in some big burns too, when I worked with the federal government, where we were looking up places so that we could go in there, get some beetles going, and also get some better grazing going for livestock. And the spurge comes back, or whatever we're targeting, we can target it easier. So that integrated approach using bugs or fire or species specific, I think is part of the big picture when you're trying to do something. The reason that we are usually in some of these projects and the scenarios that we are involved with them is because they can't get in and spray. And farmers have been taught to spray. They've been led to believe that's the only way that they can control things. So it's a mindset that we have to change. Once we're in there and prove it, we usually can change it pretty quick, I'll be quite honest. But we are competing in price on spray, and the projects that I get is cases that can't spray, and so then it's more difficult for me as well. So people have to understand that the reason some of the prices go up for that is because of the terrain that we deal with. So some of the rugged terrain I'm in on this last project I've been working on, the goats work really well because they work down in steep banks. The dogs go up and down in steep banks. And Leon and his horse don't do as well on those steep banks. So I can still get all the land covered that I need to. So typically I am contacted by the owner or an agency to come in and do some grazing for them. They're interested in knowing what it costs and what we can offer them. So I won't bid on anything until I have a visit. So I come in and I look over the site, and I actually can be pretty quick about looking at it, or I get pretty intense at looking at it, depending on the terrain. And like this last one is roughly around 4,000 acres we're on. So, I mean, there's a variety of things that I look at. So I actually was on horseback up to look around too before I actually started. Then we did the contract. I like to do a contract. Everybody knows what's expected then. And we'll go in, I haul my animals in, I haul my camp in, I have to have water there provided, whether they provide water or I provide water. That's without water, we don't last too long. So we need air and water to begin with. So water is pretty important. So then I guess after I have an assessment on the property, or if they do an assessment, I prefer somebody do an assessment that's not involved, to be honest, before I start, so that we can measure the success of what we're doing. So then I will bring my animals in, and we'll start out grazing, and we'll adopt the animals to the species that we're targeting. And most times, my animals coming in are ready to go, and they will eat what we need. On occasion, you have to train the animals to eat the vegetation that you're trying to target. Some of them are very hard to get them to eat at times, depending on the timing. So you want to be there correct timing as well. Timing of the plant in its growth. So we come in and we try, the object is to graze the plants, and I'll deal with spurge right now because that's what I like and enjoy. I come in and I try and cover the spur as much spurge as I can when I get there. What we're trying to do is take 25–30% of that plant or more, but if I can just stop that plant from growing so that it restarts, then it's taking root reserves away. And that's the object of what I'm trying to do. So this come in sooner than you would if you were grazing traditional style, the second days. We don't want it to get us the dirt. So we want to clip it. And if I could, when I'm coming and going, I go to the far end of my property on the side, depending on what direction I'm going, I'll go to the far end and graze backwards on it. So sometimes they're picking that stuff on the way up, but we usually try to get it out there fairly quick so that we have a bunch of time coming back in. And I graze different than most people. We graze a certain amount of time in the morning and again in the evening, and they're ruminating during the day. And I get more vegetation aid. I've proven that I get more vegetation aid than being out there all day like some people do. So after we graze the first pass, we try and graze the second pass, and if it's possible to get in on the third pass on some of that, it would be nice. But I mean, we're talking very short vegetation at that point. And at the beginning, it's fairly short, so you're trying to get your animals focused on that small plant other than a abundance of vegetation usually available to them. But it becomes, fairly hard at times. A lot of riding, a lot of dog work sometimes, but I mean, once they get onto the knack of what you want, they just cruise along pretty good. So what we're trying to do is overgraze these plants. The sooner we can get them overgrazed and show that root system, the faster the desirable species comes back in. And we start building better seed bank in there as well. So that we allow for that new seed to grow. Some of the undesirable seed grows, like when I get into a new patch, that's never been grazed, it comes back just crazy because of the trampling effect of the animals. All that seed is incorporated and starts. But that's what we want, right? We want to use it all. Spurgeon is a huge seed bank, so it takes, it's been in the ground for 30 years, it's still viable. So it's quite it's a weed, but I don't say that we don't get rid of fruit exposure. We control exposure. There's 3 types of animals, how they eat. So I have the nibblers, I have the rippers, and I have the strippers. So the nibblers kind of go around the outside, and they're nibbling at the small little plants or the smaller vegetation on the outside where there's not much competition from other goats or sheep or whatever I'm using. The more timid ones are out there, let's say. So then there's the rippers, what I call the rippers. They come in and they'll take a hold of the plant and probably the top third of that plant, and they bite it off, and they just suck it in through the side of their mouth. You can imagine it going in the corner of their mouth, and it just disappears into that. And that's how they consume. So they're thinking that's their top third of the plant. Then I have the ones that I really like being the male species. We like the strippers, right? So the stripper comes in and it'll grab the plant sideways, it'll have its mouth sideways, and it'll pull up, and you'll hear a loud squeak. And it's all those leaves being ripped off the plant, it just leaves the stem there. And those ones are the most efficient animals because they're taking the full job, they're doing it quickly, and they're filling their guts. I don't feel that one thing alone is a very successful program. I feel that the integrated approach is much more successful because the more tools you throw at some of these weeds, the better it is. We talked a little bit about the fire stuff. We opened up a lot of acres of a lot of scrub brush because the spurge was in there, but the beetles didn't like to be in there. So if it's just spurge, they tend to go into it more than if it's mixed with some snowberry or things like that. Anytime you can be more successful by using more tools, you should, in my opinion.
Okay, hopefully that made sense to you guys. Did it flow? Did it make sense?
Yep.
And you got
That was good.
Okay. Sometimes when you watch it over and over again, you're like, yeah, this makes sense, but to a new audience, hopefully it makes sense. So here is Lee's contact information. He said, call him, email him, and there's pamphlets at the back with his contact information. And yeah, he does lots of projects throughout Saskatchewan. I know he did one for SODCAP a couple years ago, and it was pretty successful. And yeah, he's just a really knowledgeable guy. So I just thought he has more information in that than I would be able to give you guys. So we'll go on to the next guy. Okay, I asked Ralph Corcoran to speak. He grew up near Mayron, but he lives near Langbank now. He offers 4-day holistic management courses that include 3 components. 1, figuring out holistic goals. 2, calculating a holistic financial plan. And 3, mapping out a pasture and or crop plan for the growing year. So at a high level explanation, holistic pasture plans involve high stock densities, multiple paddocks, and short time in each paddock in order to improve the health of the soil microorganisms, and vegetation. But you can also use a pasture plan to include invasive species management. And likely, Ralph is also open to talk to anyone who wants more information, or if you want to take part in a workshop. And I know for a lot of people, this type of grazing doesn't really work for your operation, but if you're wanting to incorporate some weed control, it's a good option, or a good starting point, I guess. So I asked Ralph some questions. What is prescribed grazing using a pasture plan? Why use cows for weed control? As an example, why use cows over goats? And then Ralph gives an absent example on his ranch. Why use cows over spraying or tillage? And he's also got a burdock example. What to do about a very heavy leafy spurge infestation, and then he's got some closing thoughts. So again, here's Ralph, and then it's going to be another video of him, just him talking.
So my prescription of cattle grazing is basically to stop overgrazing. So if we can stop the overgrazing, they can continually grow healthy plants and all different kinds of species of plants. So I guess I do want to talk about overgrazing. I want to explain what overgrazing is. It's not like if you have a quarter section of 10 cows, if you add one more cow in there, that's overgrazing of the seed. So that's not what we call. So in holistic management, when I teach the course, I say overgrazing is when you stay in a field or a paddock for too long. And if the plant starts growing again and the cow nips it off, that's overgrazing. So we want to prevent that. So in our fast growing season, like May and June, plants grow sort of within 3 days they're growing again. So when I took the course, I figured out I didn't know what kind of plants I had or what I was grazing, but I did know if I moved the cows every day, I would probably never overgraze on that end of the scale. So then on the other end of the scale is we want plants to have proper recovery time. Well, there again too is we don't know. I've got like how many plants, different kinds of plants, and so they recover at different stages or different times. So I change my recovery period every year. Some years it's a 60-day recovery, some years it's an 80, some years it's 120 days. Just kind of wherever we're at. These last 3 or 4 years, we were pretty dry, so I had longer recovery period. But last year, I still left it at a fairly long recovery period of 100 days. But I really grew a lot of grass that's going to go back into the ground, and it's going to be sort of my when you have lots of grass cover, lots of bare ground cover, you prevent the weeds from growing. So that's sort of a way for my grass weed management. But again, too, I don't call them weeds in my place. I call them fords. And so, when my cows come into a paddock, they eat kind of everything, so they eat the fork. But again, nature sends those forth first to cover up the bare ground. So that's where the weeds are, and so they're very controllable with grazing. Why do we use cows for weed control? Cows are part of the ecosystem, and when using a grazing plan, you put the cows in the right place at the right grazing facility, at the right times. You want the cows to come in, to a paddock, and they eat every plant, or touch every plant, or stamp on every plant, just so you have, sort of an even disturbance. So by disturbing the plants too, we could attack that weakling, this plant, when it's growing, so that's, so then are our weeds if they're not. And again, like I do call them all corpse, but we do have some problems, like we have some leafy spurs that we, not too much, but we have a little bit. But again, in our leafy spurs, we let the cows, we put them in really super high stock densities. If the cows are going to a paddock for like 1 day, we still move them 4 or 5 times that day, and we have really high stock density, and they have to eat the leafy spurt, so they have to step on it somewhat. And then the next day we make sure that they don't go to another leafy spurt paddock. We take them to a paddock that we seeded in 1991, and more alfalfas and easily digestive and easily eaten grass. So then again, when we leave that paddock of the leafy spurge, if there is anything left over now, I get out and I actually cut them down or pull them up my hand, because now the cows have cut most of them, you won't have to, but only maybe 10% of those weeds. And then I have also got written down here too that I like to, we only treat one paddock a year, so we have, so we can do a really good job. And then we say that, like you can pat yourself on the back by saying you've done a really good job of doing that one paddock or 2 paddocks. And then, again, we're farming with nature, so you have to wait for, sometimes when you, seed something into the paddock, you have to wait for a rain and you have to wait for the cows to get at the same time. But if you're trying to heal your whole ranch, it's just way too much, and you don't get it done properly, or else you do get a really good start and then you kind of leave it. So it's staying, so we try and just do one paddock at a time, and we get that healed, and then we move on to the next one. Well, we use just cows on our ranch because that's up and down. I think it's an easier tool to work with. Cows are cheapest to fence with, and they do the best job of trampling. Goats and sheep are really good too, but they're higher, they're harder to fence for. You have to have more predator control, but they do target, more of the bushy plants, which is great. But the cows will do that too if you let them. So I guess, so this is sort of our ranch, and we put the cows on different paddocks, move them around, and so we can, cure one paddock at a time. We don't have to do the whole ranch. We have absence. 1/4 section when I seeded my grass down to it, you can see the absence in the rows. And I mean to say, I don't think it, again, it's a forage, and when the cows eat that, it goes, it's a natural, what do you call it, for your bloods in your cows, every plant has a purpose for sure, but what they all are, I don't know. But anyways, this absent too, again, like when the cows leave the field, when I first started worrying about my absent, my weeds, I would go out there before the cows got in there, and we literally picked the absent, cut them off, put them in bags, brought them home, stretched them out on my lane plate, dry them out, and then gathered them all up and burned them in our garbage bin. So, and that worked, but it was quite time consuming and things with the seed and whatever else. So now I let the cows eat first, do their tramping and do their thing. And then when they leave, well, then I've only got, like I said, 10% or even 5%. And now I just cut the plant down and just leave it there. Let it go back into the ground, let the hired men in the ground work, and they do the work for us. I guess too, before we were talking about, what's best for control of weeds. And one of them was, you can use cultivation and sprays, but like when you use that sprays, like you kill more than what it's not just plant weed that you're after, you kill a lot. So it's an umbrella. And then too, when that spray gets back into the ground again, your hired men down there, they're suffering because those bugs are used to nice, healthy sugars and into the plants. So, and then the cultivation is the same way. It's like, like you root that up, and I mean, that just looks like a bomb shelter. The bugs and stuff are all in a turmoil, so they're not at home anymore, so they're not working really well. So that's why I don't like to disturb. I like the cows to work at it, or the animals have to work with that to control the weeds. I don't know whether you guys in the West are have it as bad as we do here, but it's a burr that gets in your horse's mane and tail, and then just before you ship a load of gas, for sure they're going to hit that burdock field. But I like burdock. I really like burdock. It sends a root down to a mineral cycle. So you in the ground, so it brings up the minerals, different minerals. And then when it dies, that big root creates a place for the water to go down. And, lots of work, lots of different things in the ecosystem begins to work. But here's a burdock patch. It's not my ranch, but it's my brand in Manitoba. But look at the burdocks in there. They haven't gone to seed, so the cattle are in there for the right reasons to trim that burdock down at the right time. So the burdock still hasn't gone to seed. So, and again, like this guy is the same as what we do at our ranch very well. He moves cows every day. So here's tomorrow morning. And again, it's the seeds from the years before are going to keep on growing. Let's not bang our head against the wall and really hurt ourselves. We just got to remember where these burdocks are, what paddock number they are, and then keep. So now, like I say, next year you'll have an 80-day recovery period. Well, maybe you don't even have to go back there until 50 or 60 days into it. But then you got to make sure that you remember that paddock and the burdocks were there. So the idea is with that small area, small paddocks, you can fix one problem at a time. It really works well. But again, when you spray it, I know the rural community pasture very well because I had cows in there and they sprayed leaf and spurt year after year when helicopters first came in, and things like that. They spent a lot of money. They still got leaf and spurt. So what can we do for sure? Just what was your question? What can we do? Well, let's just do a really flat grade when you get that native grass and just for a year or two do something really high stock density. And again, get a herd of sheep, get a herd of goats, and follow those cows. And they will follow them because when them cows leave in 3 or 4 days, that nice grass comes up, and even a goat will eat the nice grass. But so you got to do a little bit of shepherding. But you're fixing a problem that you have a problem with, and you totally do have a problem with like leaf dispersion. Again, I think I can kind of wrap this up by saying you got to stop the overgrazing, and so when you do that, your succession of your grasses are going to move one way or another, and like Sheena said, they're indicators weeds. There's not a weed that I can think of that the cows won't eat. Canada thistle, like you just mentioned, is such an awesome plant. When it gets to the right stage, like cows will just love it. But again, when it's in the wrong stage, they just kind of leave it and oh boy, I've got a weed problem. What are we going to do? And the same thing is, so you write it down on your pasture plan. This paddock has this, bit of Canada thistle, we got, let's hit it at a different time. Let's see what happens. We'll get it at a different time. And burdocks the same way. Leafy spurs is a little trickier because, like they say, it's hard on alfalfa and stuff. But again, if you can get them in there and get them out, I'll eat something else good for a while, get them back in here. Because you're training those cows every day to move into a new paddock.
It's kind of an abrupt end because it was hard. It was like Ralph did an hour and a half, and I had to condense it to 15 minutes. He was good at explaining. But
Ralph likes to talk.
He has a lot of good information, but it made it hard to edit. Okay, so yeah, that's the end. Hopefully you guys got a few ideas you can incorporate maybe, or get the brain turning on some different things. So there's Ralph's contact information, and it's on the sheet too in the back. Thanks for coming. I hope it was useful and you can leave with some ideas, or at least be able to contact some new people that maybe you didn't know before, or think maybe you want to get some goats, or I know pasture plans can seem kind of intimidating, but you don't have to do the whole big pasture plan. You can do it targeted, you can do it on certain paddocks. But like I said, you can talk to Ralph at any time and he can explain better than I can. So that's the end. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question, not specifically for you, but just for the room, because it's something that I don't know. But if you were to be moving cattle that frequently in that small space, what age group of cattle would be the best to use, or the easiest to use, I should say? Does anybody? Doesn't matter. Like yearlings?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I moved.
They all get what?
I moved
Mine
each
daily.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do it all the time.
I was gonna
Either daily or at the max, like Ralph was saying, every 3 days.
Yeah.
That's my longest point.
Okay.
And once they get